Friends, good afternoon yet again, and or evening, depending on where you're at. Now, if you were here 15 minutes ago, you'll notice that I was talking myself for about 7 to 8 minutes because we had no fucking sound. So if you guys wouldn't mind letting me know real quick, one, if we have sound, two, if we do not, obviously, if you can't hear me, you're not going to know what the hell I'm saying. Just let me know if we have any sound, guys, before I carry forward and look like a jackass a second time. Standing by for someone to bust out. Okay, laugh out loud. Greetings. Okay, everybody's saying hi to each other. But guys, do we have any fucking sound? Okay, thank you. Let's roll. So, god damn it, man. Um, that sucks because we were fully into it and I was hitting my groove. And then all of a sudden, I finally looked up at the chat and realized you guys couldn't fucking hear me. Take two, indeed, Rose. And take two, please, no moving banner. Some can't watch, but only listen if the banner is moving. Tell you what, love it. I know it can be annoying, but that puts out information that I can't, repeat every single video. But I will remove it shortly and just put it up here and there so it doesn't drive everybody nuts. I hear you. Thanks for that. Take two, indeed. And let's see. Doug, it looked real good what you were miming for us. Laugh out loud. I have no more issues. Excellent. Um, We'll get into this in a minute, man. I just need to relax. I don't know why there was no sound as it was working perfectly over here. So it's got me a little paranoid. Dusty, what's going down, my man? Thank God I already smoked a joint. Don't mind if I join you for this, as that might actually help. Okay, so yes, Wexican Mexler, it is still happening. And next time I will be sure to have a good whiteboard handy, my friend. My lip reading is a bit sketchy. Fear not, because as we talked about in a previous video, Scientology is working on the lip reading rundown, so we'll be able to sort that. And besides, sound and voice is highly overrated. Anyways, yes, my friend, it is still happening. And one more comment before we get into this shit. Yes, he's rebooting, swapping gear out, refreshing, Xenoing. Exactly. Tech problems, folks, but still gonna happen. I think we had actually one more here that was quite hilarious. You guys are just, so funny, making fun of my travails. You guys got to try this shit. It's so hard to juggle all this crap. Miss, what's going down? Aaron has light batteries dying on him. Sterling Tompkins has his pictures freeze. And Doug has the sound getting muted cornered. That's my department. So thanks for that. Okay, so what the hell are we talking about today, guys? This is an update in the Bixler versus Scientology civil lawsuit. Now, there's 6 ongoing lawsuits. That includes a grand jury investigation that's been ongoing for years, looking into the cult of Scientology to see if they did, in fact, cover up the rapes that Danny Masterson was convicted on. So, what this trial has to do with there's 3 Jane Does from the original criminal trial. Just real briefly, Danny was sentenced on September 7th, 2023 of this year to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25.5 years. Now, this is a civil trial where the 3 Jane Does in that trial, plus the husband of one of the Jane Does named Cedric Bixler, as well as a gal named Babette Reales, they're suing the cult of Scientology and Danny Masterson, alleging that since they first came forward with these allegations, well, 2 of the 3 girls came forward in 2016. One came forward earlier. But let's just say 2016 was when the LAPD finally got out their ass and started looking into these allegations. Now, since then, from 2016 up until the present time, these 5 individuals claim that they've been fair gamed / stalked / harassed by the cult. And very briefly, what happened is, so this civil case was on hold, meaning it was on stay, while they finished up the criminal trial. So now that the criminal trial is finished, they had a motion or a hearing to see if the stay could be lifted and that this could go forward. Now it is indeed going forward, and the trial is going to begin on September 2025. Now we're only a month and a half, approximately, of this stay being released, and already we're on Shenanigans number 4, that the cult has put roadblocks in the way of these plaintiffs coming forward with these allegations. And so you can see from the videos we've done, as well as today's update, how much shit they're throwing to stop this case. And we'll explain why, because from a normal lawyer / law perspective, this makes no sense. but following the policies that the cult members and cult attorneys have to follow, it will make sense. Which is what we'll get into. So that's a long background of what this is about. And like I said, with only a month and a half of what's already been happening, you can only imagine the strength that these women and Cedric are going to have to endure to get to that trial date of 2025. Now, the elf has no chance of being criminally indicted, as this is a civil case, meaning they're suing for damages in the way of money. This is not a criminal trial, but it could expose a ton about the cult, and they're going to do everything to shut this down because of what could be exposed if this comes out. So let me remove these from my friend. I know that's kind of annoying. Sorry about that. And let's get into a quick background. Well, let me first show you real quick. Stand by. Let me set this up. I had to just jump in here real quick. So give me one moment to pull up the fucking slides because we bombed the first one. Okay, there we go. So we've covered this in 3 previous videos. Let me show them to you real quick. Just on this one case alone. And like I said, there's 6 of them going on. So where is the first one? I'll link these in the description box, by the way, but you're going to get a good summary of all these videos today. But we've covered it here. Scientology's desperate attempt to silence that Jane Doe's and Danny Masterson civil lawsuit. This is just a month and a half ago. Scientology lawyers bitch to judge again in Danny Masterson's civil lawsuit. We have unbelievable. Scientology targets Danny Masterson's victims in court yet again. And then one more that we had just 2 weeks ago. Of course, Danny Masterson lawsuit heats up and the Scientology shenanigans continue. So here's the brief background. Let me throw you guys in the chat here. I always like to say hello. And sit back and relax as we get a cursory overview of the latest thing. This is from October 30th, and then we'll cover today's news where the gals and Cedric have struck back. So exclusive Scientology. Let me just make damn sure you guys can hear me. So this sounds okay, right? I don't want to fucking talk to myself for an hour again. Okay, someone heard me say the elf. I think we're good to go. Thank you for that. Okay. All right, guys. So here we go, man. Settle in. Exclusive Scientology slams harassment lawsuit filed by Danny Masterson's accusers as, of course, meritless and false. In court filings obtained by Daily Mail, the cult of Scientology argued the civil lawsuit omits critical facts demonstrating that their claims are meritless. I'd like to point out real quick that in Leah Remini's civil lawsuit, where she's suing the cult for fair game harassment as well, not Danny Masterson, just the cult, since she first questioned where's Shelley Miscavige in 2006 up to present time. Damn it, I knew that was going to happen. There's so many ads on this fucking thing. So they're doing the same damn tactics that they've done in Leah, and we've covered that case as well. And I'll leave a link in the description box just so you can see how closely they're related, and the tactics they use are exactly the same. And again, I'll explain as we go what is the point of all this paperwork. So this case was filed in 2019, as I mentioned previously, by 4 victims, proven and alleged, who claim that they were harassed and intimidated after reporting Danny Masterson for rape. Okay, I can see that's going to be a problem. So let me blow it down to there. It's actually 5 victims. There's 3 Jane Does. There's Babette Realis. And like I said, Cedric Bixler, who's the wife of Jane Doe, number 1, I believe, whose name is Christy Carnell Bixler. In the cult's response, the cult claimed some of the accusers had no, quote, independent corroborative evidence or could prove they were, quote, reasonably feared for their safety. In other words, we don't do fair game tactics. Even if we do, they're written into scripture, so you can't fuck with us. And they had no reason to be afraid anyways, because of course they're just making it all up. It's all an illusion. Stand by for a drink of water. The cult of Scientology has launched a massive counterattack against a lawsuit brought by convicted rapist Danny Masterson's 5 accusers, 4 accusers plus Cedric, who claim they were stalked, harassed, and threatened by the cult after coming forward with their allegations. In a barrage of new filings at Los Angeles Superior Court obtained by Daily Mail, the cult's team of lawyers vehemently denied the accusations, calling them meritless and blatantly false. Again, this is October 30th, about a week and a half ago. This is their latest attack. And then you're going to hear from the women and the very calm and cool lawyer and how they handled this. So this onslaught comes after a month after Judge Upinder Kalra at the urging, I'm not pronouncing that right, I'm sure, at the urging of the accusers' lawyers, they lifted a stay, as we mentioned previously, on the civil case that's been in place since it was filed in August 2019. Again, they had to wait to see if Danny would be convicted or not, and then the civil case could go forward, which it is. The case was put on hold to await the outcome of the Scientologist actor's criminal rape trial, which resulted in 2 convictions and a life prison sentence with the possibility of parole after 25.5 months. There's Danny in happier times. He'll never see the light of day again unless it's by a miracle or unless somehow he wins on appeal. Remember, he has filed an appeal, and you never know what can happen, but that would be a hell of a long shot, I think, and I fucking hope. So there are 2 of the accusers, the Chrissy Carnell Bixler, and that's Bobette Realis. 2 of the women were later identified as Masterson's ex-girlfriends, Chrissy Carnell Bixler, left, and Bobette Realis. The 2 other remain anonymous, known as Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2. Now, they have put their names out there. One of them is named Nisha Trout, and the other Jane Doe goes by Jen B. There's the cult still existing today, quite to the dismay of myself and people all over the world. New court documents obtained by Daily Mail show that the cult of Scientology has now launched a counterattack against the women following his conviction. Okay, so the civil lawsuit against the That 70s Show actor, which also names the cult of Scientology and the elf, David Miscavige, was brought by 4 women and again 1 gentleman who say Masterson drugged and raped them. 2 of the women named in the lawsuit were Masterson's ex-girlfriend, the aforementioned Chrissy Bixler, 45, and Bobette Realis, 42, while the other 2 are listed as Jane Doe 1 and 2. Masterson was ultimately charged with raping the 3 women, as we know, but was convicted only on Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe number 2, and the jury couldn't reach a verdict on Jane Doe 3. According to the civil lawsuit, quote, when those women came forward to report Masterson's crimes, the defendants conspired to systematically stalk, harass, invade their and their family's privacy, and intentionally cause them emotional distress to silence and intimidate them. This is the fair game activities that they're alleging has been happening since 2016. Lawyers for the cult and Masterson, of course, opposed lifting the stay on the case, arguing that it should be delayed at least until the criminal appeal is resolved. And that would be a long time, but luckily the stay was released by the judge. The accusers, quote, make many allegations that unquestionably involve acts of free speech by the cult defendants, blasted Scientology lawyers. Let me take that back and read that, because I think we do need this sentence. So, but after the judge turned down the argument to hold, to lift, basically the Scientology even tried to fight the motion to stay. They need to keep it on ice, but that was, the case was allowed to go forward and scheduled the case for, again, as mentioned before, a trial in frickin' September 2025. The attorneys launched their aggressive counteroffensive against the 4 women, calling for large parts of their testimony to be stricken and rejected by the judge. But again, man, the judge, not only in the criminal trial, but the one for the civil trial, seems to be really on point and are falling for less of their bullshit, as they especially learned a lot more about how Scientology works during the criminal trial of Danny Masterson. Again, stand by for a drink of water, please. So the accusers, quote, make many allegations that unquestionably involve acts of free speech by the cult's defendants, blasted Scientology lawyers. Again, they're saying fair game somehow falls under free speech. Again, more about that later. Moreover, the allegations leave out critical facts demonstrating that their claims are meritless. One of the cornerstones of the lawsuit is that the 3 ex-Scientologist accusers, Realis was never a Scientologist, waited up to 20 years to report Masterson for rape because they feared retribution from Scientology, which they say had a strict doctrine forbidding cult members from reporting crimes by fellow Scientologists to the police. 100% true. Now, I link this, as always, my friends, everything we go over, any videos we talk about, etc., in the description box if you want to see the actual court document. But just real briefly, we have the plaintiffs, who are the aforementioned Christy Carnell Bixler, Cedric Bixler, Jane Doe number 1, Marie Bobette Realis, and Jane Doe number 2, and the defendants are the Cult of Scientology International, Religious Technology Center, Cult of Scientology Celebrity Center International, that would be here in Los Angeles, California, the Elf, and the Rapist. And it says here that what the case number is, and this is what it's about. This is what they filed. Defendants, Cult of Scientology International, Cult of Scientology Celebrity Center International, and Religious Technology Center, special motion to strike certain allegations and corresponding causes of action from the first amended complaint of plaintiff Jane Doe number 2. Now they're coming in hot and have already mentioned that there's a second amended complaint coming. And yet Scientology's already taking all sorts of issues with this first amended complaint, knowing damn well it's all going to be irrelevant shortly. So what is the point of this, right? Stand by and we'll figure it out. In a barrage of new documents filed at Los Angeles Superior Court and obtained by Daily Mail, the cult's legal team vehemently denied the accusations, calling them meritless and false. Wow, there you can see the lovely life behind the eyes between her and the absolute psychopathic stare and somewhat smirk of the rapist. Danny Masterson and ex-girlfriend Babette Realis. The actor was never charged for sexually assaulting Realis, but she is a plaintiff in the civil case filed against the cult in 2019 because, again, she's alleging that she has also been stalked and harassed. Again, the dead eyes of the psychopath and the smiling, bright eyes from Chrissy, Carnell Bixler. Masterson's ex-girlfriend Chrissy accused the cult of poisoning and killing her dogs in retaliation for speaking out against the actor. Oh man, that part always gets me. They really try to get you where it hurts to scare the shit out of you. And what would drive you more crazy and break your heart than coming home and seeing that your dog was poisoned by poisoned meat, allegedly, right? Cult attorneys attacked the contention in their new court documents, calling it a, quote, blatant misrepresentation of church practices and adding, quote, church doctrine does not prohibit persons from reporting crimes. I just want to say real quick, we'll go over these at some point, but that's 100% false. They have very specific policies located in a book called Introduction to Scientology Ethics, which is the Mein Kampf of Scientology. And it is the fucking Bible. And you do follow and embed these policies into your brain. I remember even as a kid, I learned that you do not report another Scientologist in good standing to the police. In other words, as long as they haven't been declared an SP and they're still a member of the cult, you absolutely handle everything internally. And it's called a high crime with severe penalties within the cult if you actually do go to the police, especially with something as severe as rape. Carrying on. As for the women's allegations that they've been threatened and intimidated by other Scientologists, the attorneys maintain that none of the named people accused of making the threats was a, quote, agent of the cult, nor had they ever worked for the cult. Again, we covered 3 specific people in the previous video on this case, and I will link it in the description box. The cult attorneys blasted the alleged victims' claims that any member who leaves the cult or goes against its rules is fair game for harassment. In other words, they're saying, we don't do that. It doesn't exist. There is no doctrine of fair game within the Scientology cult, they said. They hit out at the 4 accusers for, quote, spreading falsehoods and misquoting religious Scientology texts. Again, if you want to understand Scientology, think projection, turn everything on its head, reverse it back to Scientology, and what they accuse others of doing, they themselves are doing. So they spread falsehoods constantly about people that speak out, about victims, etc., and they misquote their own religious texts at their own convenience. And they insisted that Scientology teachings are, quote, protected by a constitutional right to free speech. The church's legal team argued that some of the accusers had no independent corroborative evidence or could prove that they were, quote, reasonably feared for their safety, nor could they prove that the cult had made a credible threat, the attorneys added. All 4 women in the lawsuit maintained that after they reported Masterson, a big shot in the cult, to law enforcement, they became victims of a harassment and intimidation campaign orchestrated by the cult. Now, what the hell is this actual intimidation campaign? What's it about? Why is Scientology saying such things, and why do they feel like they can be so protected? So let me go over what the fair game. Stand by for 1 second. Okay. So let me go over what fair game actually is, and then we'll get into the update so you can see, put into context why they're doing all the things that you're going to see that they're doing. Stand by 1 more second, my friends. I just have to get this set up. Okay. So what the hell is fair game? Let me pull this down to a better view so you guys can see that I'm not just making this up. This is crucial, and this explains why they waste so much paperwork, why they bombard the court and the plaintiffs with endless challenges that don't make sense, because it's literally written into their policy. And then they're saying that these policies are protected by them being a religion. So the term fair game is used to describe policies and practices carried out by the cult towards people and groups it perceives as its enemies. Cult founder L. Ron Hubbard established the policy in the 1950s in response to criticism from both within and outside his organization. Individuals or groups who are, quote, fair game are judged to be a threat to the cult and, according to the policy, can be punished and harassed using any and all means possible. Think about that for a minute, my friends. This is written into their doctrine, just like you're never allowed to report a Scientologist in good standing to the police and that you handle everything within the cult. They're claiming that we can do anything we want because it's religiously and First Amendment protected religious policy and speech. So in 1968, Hubbard officially canceled use of the term fair game because of negative public relations it caused, although the cult's aggressive response to criticism continued. He never canceled it, my friends. He just changed it because people were getting hip to the idea that this might be illegal. Applying the principles of fair game, Hubbard and his followers targeted many individuals as well as government officials and agencies, including a program of covert and illegal infiltration of the IRS under the infamous Snow White. They also conducted private investigations, character assassination, and legal actions against the cult's critics and the media, which they still do today. Just see what they're putting Leah Remini through as she's filing her civil lawsuit and having the challenges that she's having. The policy remains in effect and has been defended by the cult of Scientology. Again, here we go, as a core religious practice. In other words, we can terrorize you, poison your pet, and lead you to the brink of insanity, but it's all religious practice, so fuck off. Starting in the 1980s for the major branch of Los Angeles, California, the Scientology organization largely switched from using church members in harassment campaigns to upping their game by hiring private investigators, including former and current Los Angeles police officers. Wonder how they get the LAPD and the Clearwater Police Department and others in the police department in their back pockets? Well, there you have it. The reason seems to be that this gave the cult a layer of protection in case embarrassing tactics were used and made public. Yeah, and it's also to protect their criminal background because they often offsource it to said, police officers and such, and they create several layers of buffering so that it can never be traced back to the cult. Quick background. So cult founder L. Ron Hubbard said all opposition came from what he called suppressive persons. Those are Scientologists that he claims are antisocial people who want to destroy anything that benefits humanity. In written policies dating from the mid-1950s, Hubbard told his followers to take a hard line against perceived opponents. In 1955, and here is the key and why I wanted to read this, this puts in perspective why Scientology does these tactics, which would cause a normal lawyer or court of law to scratch their head. Quote, and remember, guys, this is in policy, so they literally have to follow this. They have to repeat the playbook. The purpose of the suit is to harass and discourage rather than to win. The law can be used easily to harass, and enough harassment on somebody who's simply on the thin edge anyways, well knowing that he is not authorized, will generally be sufficient to cause his professional decease. If possible, of course, ruin him utterly. Isn't that absolutely lovely? Anyways, so there you go. That puts into context why you're when we go over these updates, including the one that we're going to get to now with the girls fighting back, why the fuck Scientology behaves in the way that it does. Okay. So here's the latest update that just came in today. This is compliments of, excuse me. Let me throw you guys back in the chat. This is compliments of Tony Ortega. It's on his blog, and there will be a link in the description box, and we'll go over some of this. Okay. I'm going to throw this up, love it, just for one quick second, if you don't mind. So if people have any questions, please throw them in, and we'll cover them towards the end or as we go. So, not to be deterred by the cult's tactics that we just read, Danny Masterson's victims strike back at Scientology's attempt to gut their lawsuit. And we just covered the gutting of that lawsuit. So, as we mentioned, the Bixler lawsuits, the one that was filed in 2019 by the rapist victims against both the cult and the rapist for a campaign of harassment, the women say that they've been enduring since they came forward with their allegations in 2016 to the LAPD. By the way, allegations came forward as early as, I believe, 2001 and 2003, and the LAPD sat on their ass and didn't do anything about it. And it took other victims and such coming forward for them finally to begin looking into it. Plus, there's all sorts of shit with the LAPD and how they were hesitant, not just because they didn't have enough evidence, shall we say, but again, the aforementioned cult has a way of safe pointing and getting the LAPD to work with them, not so much against them, if you get my drift. The lawsuit was on hold during Masterson's criminal trials, as we mentioned, and now that he's been convicted, the lawsuit started up again, despite Scientology's attempt to not have the stay lifted. But Scientology then filed a motion to strike, asking the court to gut the case by making a couple of objections. First, that some of the material in the lawsuit regards things that happened while the Jane Does were still in Scientology. The appellate court that earlier revived this lawsuit said that it could proceed because the allegations of stalking and harassment have all occurred since the women left the cult. Because that's the case, Scientology argues, then the sections of the lawsuit that refer to what the women went through earlier should be taken out. Are you following their logic, or shall I say illogic? So secondly, the cult says it's unhappy that the lawsuit makes references to its fair game policies. They're unhappy, alleging that the cult retaliates against people who leave the organization and speak out about it, or in this case, go to law enforcement. Scientology denies that it has a fair game policy, but it also argues that any discussion of its internal policies, like the fair game policies, is not something a civil court can consider, and it wants the material pulled. You guys get the lunacy of that? Again, I think the judge is going to see right through this shit, and the calm attorney responds on the plaintiff's behalf very calmly and assuredly, but these tactics have worked in the past, my friends. You never know. So they throw everything and their mother at the case and they hope something fucking sticks. Now, attorneys for the plaintiffs, John Cassera and Seth Lerman, have submitted a calm and logical reply to Scientology's screaming motion. They point out that one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit, Babette Realis, was never a Scientologist, and she's alleging all of the same causes of action as the others are. So it's pointless to try and pull out material related to when the others were Scientologists, because all of them are included in the lawsuit. And besides, what occurred when the Jane Does were Scientologists is relevant to what happened to them later when they went to the police. Of course it is. And that's why Scientology, particularly in the retrial of Danny, Scientology was allowed to be brought up into the court more to explain these policies and such. Defendants, quote, so this is the quote, defendants now ask the court to strike allegations dating from times in which some plaintiffs were Scientologists on the basis that those allegations are irrelevant to all plaintiffs' causes of action, which arise out of the harassment campaign the defendants inflicted on plaintiffs. But as the court already held in denying a similar motion to strike filed by defendant Masterson, plaintiffs' allegations from the period prior to the initiation of the harassment campaign are irrelevant to plaintiffs' causes of actions because they explain, quote, why Masterson and the other defendants began to allegedly stalk and torment the plaintiffs. Exactly. Scientology wants that thrown out, but if you don't go into the history of Scientology's policies, as we discovered in the criminal trial, it doesn't explain why they're alleging that they're being harassed today, right? Oh, Scientology's illogic is just so ridiculous. As for Scientology taking offense to the references to fair game and other cult policies, Cassera and Lerman argue that Scientology's behavior is relevant. Yes, exactly. Whether or not one considers it a church, they really need to consider it and label it a destructive cult. Maybe then we can get somewhere. Not least removing their fucking tax exempt status that allows them to get away with this stuff. Quote, what is relevant, however, is whether defendants promulgated and enforced fair game and related policies, but those are factual questions, not religious ones. Whether defendants promulgated and enforced fair game and related policies because of religious beliefs, in spite of religious beliefs, or without regard to religious beliefs is immaterial. Exactly. One other thing to say regards that too, it is interesting which came first, the belief or the actions. But since it's written into their policies that they have to follow this playbook, man, not a single word of Hubbard can be changed. And this is how you deal with the law. It's used to harass, intimidate, and get the plaintiffs to go away or take a payout or whatever, right? Especially this civil case, because man, so much could come out about Scientology that could actually seriously threaten them in a way where finally they might actually go down. So this is a big deal, but this is what they do, man. They what the hell was I saying? Okay, stand by for 1 second. I got to pull this back. Okay, so yeah, the question is, it doesn't matter what you believe, it matters what you do. But I would say that beliefs, and it's true, but beliefs and actions are not inseparable. So if you believe that you have to follow the policies of Hubbard, then you will act in a manner that causes you to do fair game, because it's the beliefs that make you act on it. If you don't believe in Scientology, if you question fair game when you're in the cult, or like I said, you're not in that bubble world, you don't have beliefs that cause you to go out and harass your mates that you don't like. And so it was only when I was in the cult where I felt compelled to actually do these things, but it was nothing more and nothing less than a fucking belief. So they're not inseparable. That's all I wanted to point I wanted to make. Okay, so carrying on. So where are we? Okay, so let's go back up here. So it's not a matter of what they fucking believe, is what the plaintiff's attorney is saying very logically. Of course, it's not a matter of what they believe. It's their fucking actions, man. They're stalking these people. Carrying on, and as a more general principle, the cult's argument that its internal policies can't be the subject of a lawsuit just isn't supported by case law. Exactly. Remember that fair game thing that I showed you earlier, their policy? They're saying that Scientology's argument is that those policies cannot be the subject of a lawsuit, which is complete horseshit. Hopefully. I hope that, because again, Scientology does win sometimes on these things that are illogical. Quote, defendants effectively argue that a religious organization can implement and enforce any policy it wants, and that civil plaintiffs can never allege that they were harmed by the implementation and enforcement of that policy. That's what the cult is claiming. Unsurprisingly, this argument is foreclosed by controlling precedents. In other words, total bullshit. We already have precedents for it. And then they cite a number of relevant cases which establish that while belief is protected, your fucking conduct and stalking people is not. Quote, plaintiffs do not challenge defendants' religious beliefs, but rather their conduct and promulgating and enforcing fair game and other policies, they write. Then at the end, they make reference to their plans to file a new amended complaint and point out that some of the things Scientology is complaining about are going to be left out of the new version of the lawsuit anyways. Again, why would Scientology do this when they know there's a second amended lawsuit coming and they could save a lot of time and money? Why did they do it? Just the aforementioned policies and what we read on fair game that they have to follow. The purpose of the suit is to harass and intimidate, not to win. You'll remember that previously we had said it seemed odd that Scientology was spending so much time carping about a lawsuit than even they acknowledged was about to be superseded. Again, that explains it. So yes, that's confirmation that the new amended complaint is in fact coming and that it'll be substantially different than what was filed back in 2020 by the original team of attorneys from Philadelphia who first represented the Jane Does. And here we go. God bless these judges, man, because they're getting more hip to Scientology. Maybe they watch SPTV too. TV too. You never know. I don't know if they're allowed to, but they certainly seem a lot more skilled in the last couple of years in dealing with Danny Masterson and the like, where before Scientology used to unequivocally kick their ass every time. Carrying on. Judging by the skillful and calm way this filing was written, as opposed to Scientology's extreme hyperventilating, it suggests to us that the Jane Does are now in good hands. And the hearing on Scientology's motions to strike is coming up fast. That's scheduled for November 22nd. And then now that we have a very quick update before we end off here, my friend, on Jane Doe 1's forced marriage lawsuit. Again, we've covered this in many previous videos. Let me just pull you off here for a second so you can see these, just so we don't get too confused and we can keep track of cases. Now, I'll link these in the description box, but this has to do with Jane Doe 1, who is also in the Danny Masterson criminal trial. She's in the civil lawsuit that we're discussing now. And then she's alleging that Gavin Potter, alleged Sea Org groomer Gavin Potter, sexually assaulted her as a minor and after. So talk about, a living hell. She is one hell of a trooper. But anyways, this has to do with Jane Doe 1's lawsuit. And first of all, they tried to throw her into religious arbitration. This is about a month and a half ago. Again, do you see a pattern here? We've done multiple videos on each of these, whether they're Leah Remini, this civil case that we're covering called Bixler versus Scientology, or Jane Doe 1's civil lawsuit, or Leah Remini's lawsuit. They do the same fucking things. So Jane Doe 1's lawsuit, they first tried to throw it into religious arbitration there. Let's see what else we got. And then they tried to... We have an update on how Scientology plans to bury Jane Doe 1's forced marriage lawsuit, where they threw very similar things at them just 2 weeks ago. Again, I'll link those in the description box. And let's carry on with the final update from that. And then we'll roll out of here. Let me take off the, sorry, love it. I think I left the captions on too long. If you guys have any questions, throw up the question marks. That's the main thing to get out of that. And then throw you guys in the chat as we wind down. Crazy shit though, right, guys? I mean, what are it's just amazing that they just never learn from their mistakes, because they're literally programmed zombies to act in a way that even though judges and the public in general are getting hip to, they're locked in indefinitely to keep doing this over and over again. Meanwhile, in Jane Doe 1's forced marriage lawsuit, the court has agreed a December 13th hearing to consider her request for limited discovery while the lawsuit's on hold. Previously, the judge had granted Scientology's motion to put the case on ice until February, when the cult's motion to force the case into arbitration will be held. Again, we covered this in the last video, and we didn't have the verdict yet, but Scientology did, in fact, that day that the video was posted, win a small battle in court by getting this case put on ice until February, where they actually considered the stupid religious arbitration. Not to beat a dead horse, but if you don't know what religious arbitration is, it's another scam the cult uses to try to say, we're a religion and therefore you can't infringe upon our rights. So it doesn't matter what we do, but you have to bring it into our court of law, not the real court of law. So their religious arbitration is rigged, where once they get you back to the cult, they bitch slap you, scare the shit out of you, brainwash you and gaslight you to get you to either apologize or exit the cult without another word, because they got you in their court of law now and out of the actual real court of law. That's what their religious arbitration is all about. And that appertains, again, to the fact that you cannot, a Scientologist in good standing cannot report another Scientologist in good standing to law enforcement, or they have high crimes. And one of those high crimes, if Scientology has it its way, is what's called a committee of evidence, where they throw people into these kangaroo pseudo courts called religious arbitration. That's been covered as well in the past. Sorry to beat a dead horse there. So finishing up, so Scientology's motion to put the case on ice until February, when the cult's motion to force the case into arbitration will be held. Again, that's the religious arbitration that they're trying to throw Jane Doe 1 in, and every other case that they can try to do that with. Jane Doe's 1 team is asking for the right to investigate the 2002 contract that Scientology says obliges Jane Doe 1 to submit to, quote, religious arbitration, and of course, derail her lawsuit. That's what it's all about. And by the way, that's all of that information is covered in those previous videos that I showed you regarding Jane Doe. And if you go through that, Leah's case, and this one, you'll see the same damn things being applied. And there'll be many more videos in the future between now and September 2025 showing you all the bullshit, literally a playbook of what they do. That's why I'm doing these videos, man, and laying them out, because, it's really important, in my opinion, to at least have a running record of how the cult works in real time. So you never know who's going to see it. It helps the education. And these tactics always do work. And you can see in real time the amount of pressure that these women and anybody that sues the cult, what they actually fucking go up against. Anyways, if you guys have any questions, yeah, exactly. Love it. I mean, I figured if I keep repeating the word cult over and over, it could help spread and beat it into people's brains that religions do not, they allow you to leave. They don't steal your family from you. They don't charge you exorbitant amounts of money. It's $1 million minimum to get to the top of the cult's bridge called OT8. So you take out the business aspects, the disconnection from the families. I mean, what do religions, fair game people, if you're a church on Sunday kind of person and you leave the Christian church, do you have people showing up at your door, with AK-47s? And what I'm saying is, you have to be careful what you say, but obviously a religion lets you leave. It's like, all good. You might have your buddy go, are you sure you want to give up Christ or whatever? But they don't fucking stalk you like a cult. They don't steal your family from you and shit. And it's important for that distinction, because if they're labeled as a destructive cult, maybe the IRS could reinvestigate the special, very special deal that they have with them that gave them their religious status, and they can be aptly labeled what they are. And then the fucking bulldozer will start to roll, because that really does afford them so much bullshit, not least what we're fucking seeing today. They wouldn't be able to hide behind religious protection with the fair game policies and such. Star, how you doing? Is fair game written anywhere in their doctrines given to members to bring to court? Let me see if I get that right. Is fair game written anywhere in their documents given to members to bring to court? Why do I not understand that, Star? It's probably because I'm high and I took a hit of the pipe earlier. But I don't quite understand that, but I can riff off what you might be saying, or at least something that's hopefully pertinent to the question that you're asking. So in the trial, one of the things that happened, I told you about Scientology's Mein Kampf equivalent, right? The Introduction to Scientology Ethics book, which is a Scientologist Bible. It tells you how to run your life, what policies you have to follow as a Scientologist. It's the rule book. It has the ethics conditions in and other such things, right? So in the first trial of the Danny Masterson criminal trial, Scientology was trying to keep itself out as much as possible from even being mentioned. But because the dumbass Danny couldn't have had any worse lawyers. They literally did everything that they shouldn't have to make this all magically line up right so they could actually get a conviction. But one of the things Danny's lawyers did, man, is he tried to trip up one of the Jane Does by saying, hey, here's the Scientology ethics book. Here's the page on their policies. Show me where it says that we fair game people, or that you can't report to the police. And then it wasn't on that page that was showing. The Jane Doe one obviously didn't have the book memorized, so she wasn't able to flip around and find it. Scientology's lawyer then, as he's heading back to sit down, grabs the book out of the fucking lawyer's hand, opens it up to the correct page where it shows they indeed have a policy right there in their book that says you cannot, a Scientologist in good standing cannot report another Scientologist in good standing to law enforcement unless they want to be subject to high crimes. And that also is pertinent to what you might be asking here. And yes, some of those documents showing their policies of fair game and that you can't report to the police have been documented in court. And you better damn well believe that that's going to come out in the civil trial if they can make it to September 2025. I mean, you guys are going to be like, yeah, no problem. These women are tough. Yeah, they obviously are tough because of what they've been through. But Scientology might actually win on some of these things. They might actually figure out a way, as you'll see as we keep this running record. You're going to see all the ways that they derail things, and they're fucking professionals at this. So unless the times are changing, we can't be super confident that they'll even make it to the fucking court. But I'm sure they will. Okay, Nancy, how you doing, my friend? Can't they use the testimony regarding the reporting by Claire Headley to prove they're outright lying? So frustrating. Good point. I'm not a lawyer, Nancy. I only play one on YouTube. But yes, I assume that they would bring in that and everything. Let's just say I'm sure they have a very, very solid case, which would include that and many other damning pieces of evidence that are going to lay out exactly how Scientology works and exactly what the cult has done to these girls, allegedly, and Cedric. Okay, any more questions before we roll out? Couple more. Okay, how you doing? It's my friends. I just can't see the name because it's so small. Carlina, I'm sorry if I got that wrong. Question. Hi, Doug from No Shit, Tasmania, Australia. Hi, love all your videos. You're spreading it here. Thank you very much, Karina. I appreciate that. If you need a mod for different time zone, I'm always here available. Thanks, Karina. Okay, it is Karina. Hey, that's very nice of you. We've got Chow Young Smut, also known as Cricket, who's been a guest on the show as a mod, and I would like to add a couple of other people. Karina, can you do me a favor? The only way I can add people that makes it easy, and it's a pain in the ass otherwise, if you can leave a comment after this live is done, I can then click on you, go to your YouTube channel, copy your link, and then it's easy to add you to a mod. Short of that, I can't really do it. So if you want to be a mod and you won't censor anybody, please, man, no censoring unless they're a total troll designed to clearly detract from the conversation. Otherwise, this is a censor-free zone. So if you promise not to censor anybody, if you don't have any personal beliefs that are going to get in the way of that, like if you're a part of a religion, this happened with the last mod, if you're a part of a religion and then someone offends you, your personal beliefs, and you want to block them, we can't have any of that stuff. So if you want to do that, Karina, and you fit the qualifications, thank you very much. Would love to have you as a mod. Okay, let me see if you've got any more questions. All right. By the way, guys, we're doing an interview, not an interview. I'm going to talk with Marilyn Honig, who we've done she really opened up about her incredible story about what she went through in her Pentecostal-esque cult. And we're going to discuss the terms of her cult and how pertinent they are and the Scientology equivalent of it. In other words, the cult I was born into. And we're going to break down just how similar all high control groups work. And the controlling and redefinition of words is massively, massively key to that, which we're going to go into later tonight, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, if you guys aren't all asleep and can join us. Destiny, how you doing? Question, Doug, have you ever found yourself in another high control group? Well, if I did, Destiny, I probably wouldn't know it, just like I didn't know it when I was in Scientology. The answer to that is hell no. However, a caveat, since that happened to me one time, and since I realized, because I woke up in a single day, that I wasn't stupid, but I was simply the subject of advanced psychology techniques that I wasn't taught in school, I didn't beat myself up for, being in a cult. I wanted to know how the trick worked. And one of my main motivations, Destiny, was to make sure, because this was so goddamn painful and I lost everything, including my family, my acting career, etc., and my mind temporarily. Because it was so extreme, I've made it a more than a hobby to find out how the trick was done so that I don't wind up into another cult. I'd like to think that can never happen, but I will never be totally sure. I want to keep a little bit of skepticism because I know that it can happen to me and others again. And I'll always be on defense against that to some degree, which is really good. One more I asked because I got to roll out, man. I got to get some food before we hit the other one later tonight. There's actually 2 more videos too I wanted to do today, but we might have to put those off for tomorrow. I want to go over the response that I got from Scientology via email from the prank call that I did and talk a little bit about that. And then there's a update on why Bijou Phillips, might really be divorcing Danny Masterson, but we'll probably have to hit that in the morning. But I need to roll out shortly. So how on earth am I supposed to pronounce that, my friend? You got to come up with an easier moniker. So that would be 11ABASP. I'm sure that means something clever that I'm not quite connecting right now. IBABSP. Okay. Please clarify in the comments, my friends. Question, are you ever recognized by current Scientologists and what do they do? No, I only live, 10 minutes away from Celebrity Center here in Los Angeles, the infamous Big Blue building on L. Ron Hubbard Way, all the places that I used to go and get brainwashed by. Once in a while I'll go by and, check them out or whatever, but I don't engage too much with Scientologists. I haven't been contacted by any Scientologists unless they're exes. And the only Scientologist I got to talk to was the other night by accidentally stumbling into a phone call where I got to talk live to a Scientologist. So, no, I haven't been recognized by any current Scientologist. But, what would they do anyways? They would, I've seen, just to clarify that, I have seen some Scientologists that I know that were friends when I've done protests. I haven't protested in a couple years, but I used to fairly often. So I have seen current Scientologists and I have engaged with them. And, but other than that, no, I don't, make it a habit of hanging out by their building. I'm not likely to run into them here where I live. Cause I'm kind of on the outskirts of the cult headquarters. And even if I did run into one, I don't know what the hell I'd have to say, man. Until they're ready to wake up, I'm not going to just magically snap them out of it anyways. It probably wouldn't be a conversation that I could have with them. If they knew I was out of the cult, they would be more likely to literally just turn around and run away. It would be hard to even engage them. Okay, my friends, I guess that's it for now. Looks like there's more questions, but if you want to leave them in the comments that we didn't get to, or you want to throw them up in the next video we do, we can hit them there. And if you throw them in the comments, I will do my best to answer them. So, all right, so that's it for now. If you don't mind, my friends, please like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the other side.
Hard physical labor, an intense ideological study used to break the subject's will, or is that the truth?